month.
Joining us now, Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of the great state of Florida. I want to start with Robert Mueller because you have you've said he should be terminated. What is it specifically? When I look at sort of Robert Mueller's credentials, I think he sort of seems like a stellar candidate.
I mean, just take a look at them. The first one being that he's a Republican, Marine Corps officer in Vietnam, U.S. Attorney's Office in San Francisco, Assistant U.S. Attorney in Boston, homicide at U.S. Attorney's Washington, D.C. office, Deputy Attorney General, and then FBI Director. Come on, what's not to like about this guy?
Nothing's not to like about his past. It's his present, and it's projecting into the future the activities that are engaged in that seem to reflect bias, particularly when you look at the members of his team that he's assembled. I mean, we have countless very talented prosecutors in our federal system. Why you would go and pick people who've defended the Clinton Foundation, people who were attending Hillary Clinton's election night party? Why not go with people who were separate from politics? The American people greater confidence in this investigation, I don't know, but no Republican has attacked Robert Mueller's past. It's the decisions he's made since being appointed special counsel we take exception with.
Congressman, if the issue is anybody who's been tied to Hillary Clinton, President Trump himself and Hillary Clinton was at President Trump's wedding. Jared and Ivanka have been Democratic donors. So is the president.
Well,
right, yeah. The fact
Gary Cohn is a Democrat.
And he's in the White House.
Well, sure. The fact that Republicans and Democrats can both work with each other and opposed to each other is in no way reflective of whether or not Robert Mueller and the team he has assembled have been assembled with the reflection of bias. And our concern is that that bias is reflected in whether it's Andrew Weissman's inclusion in the team or the various people who've been involved in defending the Clinton Foundation. We just think it ought to be called fair, and doesn't seem to be that way.
Well, a number of your Republicans who are, real Republicans, and they feel strongly about the same issues that you do, think otherwise. They're voicing their confidence in Robert Mueller. Here's just one example of, well, here's a few examples. Let's listen.
I think Mr. Mueller is the perfect guy to get to the bottom of all this, and he will. And I think my job, among others, is to give him the space to do it. I intend to do that. I've got legislation protecting Mr. Mueller, and I'll be glad to pass it tomorrow.
It certainly wouldn't hurt to put that extra safeguard in place, given the latest stories.
Do you still trust, after all you've heard, do you still trust Special Counsel Robert Mueller to conduct a fair and unbiased investigation?
100%, particularly if he's given the time, the resources, and the independence to do his job.
I mean, Trey Gowdy, no friend of Democrats. Why are you on a different side of this? And you said that you have about 35 supporters in the House on this.
Sure. There are 35 Republicans who have actually sent letters to get the memo released. That's a different question. We have a different group that's assembled concerning the Robert Mueller matter. But look, Republican Party's a big tent. There's a variety of different presenting the evidence that I think reflects bias. If other folks are pleased with Mr. Mueller, they're entitled to that viewpoint, but I don't think it in any way disputes the facts of the people who've been assembled and the tactics that have been undertaken.
Let's talk about the memo. We have all sorts of views on this memo that nobody's seen.
Not nobody,
well,
right? 190 Republicans have read it,
right,
and almost no Democrats have read it because Democrats have been boycotting, even going to read the memo. That seems to me to be pretty childish.
Well, the Department of Justice says releasing it is extraordinarily reckless, and the president refers to the Department of Justice as my guys. So if his own Department of Justice says this is extraordinarily reckless, why is it a good idea to do it?
Well, the Department of Justice hasn't even read the memo, so it'd be hard for them to determine what would or would not be reckless because they haven't seen it, and there are very good reasons why we can't show it to them. I think Devin Nunes has done a great job chairing the Intelligence Committee, leading this investigation. I trust his judgment.
In leading the investigation.
Oh, no, he is.
He recused himself.
Well, he had, because there were false charges that he had released classified information to the White House. There was an ethics investigation into that allegation. Mr. Nunes was completely cleared.
So has he made a formal announcement that he has no longer recused himself? And
Devin Nunes seems to be in full command and control of this investigation. I think that's a good thing. And all the allegations that were made against him, completely proven false, and he was completely cleared. And he is the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, and I trust his judgment.
Co-chairman, right?
Well, he's the chairman of the majority side.
Let's talk about, on January 25th, you said that if we, on CNN, if we accept as a premise that members of Congress ought to take top-secret documents and go start reading them on the floor of the House of Representatives, it will irreparably damage the sharing of intelligence and information. So how do you square that was on January 25th, with the idea that you want this document out there, that the Justice Department, which is part of the executive, which really determines what's top secret and what's not, says don't let it go?
Well, the Justice Department isn't at the top of the executive branch. The president is. My argument was that deviating from our normal processes, breaking the rules, just going rogue and reading this memo on the floor of the Congress, as Chris Cuomo had suggested during that interview, would be reckless. I support following the proper procedures that are laid out under the rules of the House that allow the president to be able to object to any declassification would be the right way to go. Ultimately, I think it's going to be good for the country if we have this memo out in public and we could debate its merits. We could come on this program and, instead of speaking in generalities, actually get into the specific actions that were taken, the facts that are laid out, and determine if that's the type of country we want to live in.
But is it not a concern that what if there's only some of the facts in there? What if things are cherry-picked and the American people don't have information across the board? We're forced to accept what's given to us, and if only a portion of the information is offered to us, how do we know if we're actually seeing the full picture?
I'm always for getting more information. I think that transparency is the best antidote to any type of corruption or bad activities in government, but I think that saying, well, because this might not be every single fact that's ever existed, we want to deprive ourselves of even seeing those facts, seems to be rather myopic. I have an open source view. Let's evaluate everything that doesn't put our sources and methods in jeopardy, and let's have a real discussion about what type of surveillance policies we want to have, and let's have the right oversight.